Hello, welcome back to Earth Science. Today we're actually going to be doing a lab. So there's going to actually be two parts to the lesson video today. There's going to be this part that explains everything, and then in the actual lab assignment, there's a link to the demonstration video on YouTube, and you will need to watch that demonstration video at home if you're not able to perform the lab. We're going to do this in class using the materials listed. However, if you don't have the materials at home, which most of you probably won't, you can substitute them with things. So instead of a beaker, use a cup. Instead of a Rubbermaid tub, you might use some type of food storage dish that's a larger size, or if you have a deep pan or something like that. Anything that's at least a couple inches deep should work. It doesn't have to be large. If you're using some type of cooking utensils, make sure it's okay with your parents and make sure that you are using something that is ingestible as your materials. If you don't have sand and you're not using cooking utensils or bowls, you can use dirt. If your parents say it's okay, you could also use salt or sugar, something along those lines. If you use like baking powder, soda, or like flour, it will probably get kind of messy and gummy. So you probably won't want to do that, but you can find things to substitute for this so you can actually do this lab at home if you'd like. And if you can't, again, you can always click on the demonstration video that's listed in the lab assignment and do it that way. So let's get into it. Here's our Weathering and Erosion Lab. That's what we're going to do today. So today's date, you're going to create your own mini stream table to observe how weathering and erosion can change the surface of the earth. Your bell work for today is to go ahead and read the lab instructions. There's a presentation down here below that we'll get to in a second. So read those lab instructions, make your own copy of the student lab answer document, and then start working on the pre-lab questions. That's your bell work. The actual lesson activity is down here. So you're going to complete the lab following the instructions below. This is going to be a summary presentation. And when we get into the lab assignment, you'll see the more detailed lab procedures. But you're going to complete the lab. Make sure that when it says to draw something on paper, you actually draw it on paper. You'll need to take a picture of your drawing and insert that into your Google Doc when you submit it to make sure that you let me know that you did the drawings. So snap a picture and insert it into the Google Doc where it says to. If you're absent or otherwise unable to do the lab in class, that would be my virtual kids who don't have supplies to substitute with. You can watch the demonstration video here to complete the answer sheet. So if you click on this link, it will pop you over into the YouTube video that is a demonstration of me completing the lab, and you can see the lab happening. I go through the whole thing, I explain what's going on, and I basically do the lab on the video, and you can use that video then to answer the questions in the Google Doc. You'll still need to draw pictures and things yourself as well. Answer all the questions on the student answer sheet that's linked up in the bell work, and submit your completed document in your assignment. So here are the lab instructions. This is a quick summary what you're going to be doing. So bell work, answer the pre-lab questions that are on your document. Here's your pre-lab questions. You're going to answer these questions on your document. Here's the procedure. Make all of your notes on paper for your drawings. You can type directly into your student answer sheet to answer the questions. Here's what you need for supplies. So we're going to use beakers for sand and water. We're going to use a plastic Rubbermaid tub. Mine is about the size of a shoebox. A ceramic tile. I actually have little plastic pieces of, they're like the plastic cutting mats that we've cut apart to replace the ceramic tile. A straw, some large pebbles and small rocks, and then paper towels to clean up as you need to. The procedures in the rest of the slideshow presentation are summaries of the actual procedures that we're going to go through, but this is basically what you're going to be doing. You're going to make a sand dune that looks similar to this one in this image, add your boulders to it, which is your pebbles and your rocks, aim one into the straw of the sand dune, blow in the other, watch what happens. draw your before, during, and after pictures, answer the questions for part 1. Part 2, you're going to make a plateau instead of a dune, so it's going to be flat on the top. Create a riverbed. You can just use your straw for that. You're not going to need it anymore after this. So use your straw to draw a river. You can either draw a straight river or a meandering river, whatever you want. You just need a little bit of a slope on this end down here towards the middle of your container, and you need it flat up here on the back side, near the back edge of your container there, to make it a plateau with a river that flows down. Again, draw your before, during, and after, and you're going to use your water. You're going to pour it in this back section right here along the edge, and it's easiest if you trickle it down at the side of the container. Again, if you don't have a very deep container, this is a baking sheet that's about 1.5 inches or so tall. So if you don't have a large deep-sided container, you can just pour it into the back edge here very slowly. Part 3, remake your sand dune. You can use your wet sand to do this because it's going to get wet again anyway. So remake your sand dune using the same sand, wet sand, whatever material you used. Add water to this empty space down here on the left-hand side of the picture until it's about 1/3 to halfway up the sand dune. And then you're going to create waves with that little plastic piece that I have in there, or the ceramic tile, or you can just get in there with your hand and swish with your hand if you don't have anything to use. Again, draw your before, during, and after. Answer the questions in your notebook. So you've now had pre-labs, part 1, 2, and 3 questions, and then now you have post-lab questions to answer. So there are actually 5 questions. That's pre-lab, part 1, part 2, part 3, and post-lab questions. 5 sets of questions. Once you are done with that, you'll turn that document in. This is a link to that demonstration video on YouTube if you're not able to do the lab yourself at home and you need to watch the video instead. And then here's your Weathering and Erosion Lab assignment page that you're going to turn it in on. So again, here's the link to your student answer document. Same information that was on the lesson page, except here you have the actual lab document embedded. So you have your pre-lab questions. If you're unable to perform it, watch the video here. And then here's your detailed lab instructions. Materials. Here's the student answer sheet again, if you need the link. Part 1, instructions. So pile up your sand, make it shaped like a dune, add your large pebbles and boulders, draw your before picture, blow through the straw, aiming it at the sand dune. Once you start seeing changes happening, write down observations of what's going on, draw a picture in your notebooks, keep blowing on the sand until you've displaced a large amount of it, draw your after picture in your notebooks. All 3 of those pictures are going to help you answer the questions below. Remove the large pebbles from the mixture, set them to the side, throw away your straw. You might actually hold onto your straw to make your riverbed with. Otherwise, you're going to have to use your finger to make a riverbed, and then you can throw your straw away after you do that. Answer these questions. Go on to part 2. You're going to tip it up so the sand falls back to the far end. You're going to make your plateau here, so the top part of the sand needs to be flat. It is a little bit easier to do this if you have wet sand, because you can make the riverbed and it won't fall back in on itself and collapse. Dry sand, it does the same thing, it just collapses a little bit, so it's not going to be as deep and as obvious that it's a riverbed. So you're going to tip it up so the sand's back at this end, flatten out the top of it so you have a slope at this end down here, but all of this up here is flat. Use your finger, a pencil, or your straw to make a riverbed, either a straight one or a meandering one, does not matter. So that needs to be about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch deep. Draw your before picture in your notebook. Fill your beaker with water. It doesn't necessarily matter exactly how much is in your beaker as long as you have enough to pour into the river to see some sediment coming out the bottom. Once you start seeing sediment coming out the bottom, you're going to stop. So you're going to fill your beaker, pour it in at this far end back here, the top of the picture, so back here at the edge of your container. When you start seeing sediment come out the bottom, you're going to stop, and you're going to describe what's happening, what you're seeing going on, and then you're going to draw your Deering picture. And then you're going to keep pouring water in here until you have a significant amount of displacement down here. And then you're going to stop again, draw your after picture, and then you're going to answer the questions. So answer these questions. In order to clean up, you're going to either dump the water out of here if it's too deep, or you can leave some of that water in here to use for part 3. You're basically going to, for part 3, you're going to redo your sand dune. So put it up in a dune form just like it was in part 1 here, except you're going to have wet sand instead of dry sand. So reform your sand dune, and then this left part of the image here will have your leftover water from the river in it, and that's totally fine. If you have too much water in there and it's too deep, you will need to remove some. So make your sand dune, add some more water to the empty end of the tub until it's filled about a third of the way up. Anything a third to halfway up your dune is fine. More than halfway up the dune, that's too much water. You need to pull some out. Draw your before picture in your notebook. Use your ceramic tile, or in our case, we're using plastic, little plastic pages or pieces that we've cut apart to make some waves. And you're going to swish the water up towards the sand dune. And as you swish it up towards the sand dune, the water will go up and back and make those waves. Once you start seeing some changes in your dune, stop swishing, write down your observations, draw your Deering picture. Then you're going to continue swishing, keep that water moving up and back in that wave pattern until almost the entire dune has eroded away, and then do an after picture. Once you are done, dump your wastewater and your gritty, gross water you are going to dump into, in class, we have a throwaway bin for it where it's going to allow the particles to settle out, and then it'll separate the water from the sand. If you are at home, ask your parents how they want you to get rid of it. Sand should not be flushed down the toilet or poured down the sink. If you have sand or dirt that you've used, you can dump it outside and it's perfectly fine. If you've used some kind of cooking materials like salt or sugar, you'll need to ask your parents how they want you to clean that up. And please get permission to do this before you start, because it will get messy. So clean up your mess, throw away the trash, dry out your tub, clean your supplies, return everything back up here if you're in class. If you're doing this at home, put everything back how it goes. Make sure it's nice and clean first. Don't put a dirty, gritty, gross container away. Okay, wash it out, clean it. Make sure you use dish soap so that it's reusable again in the future. If you need to separate your material from the water, you can just use a paper towel to filter that out. Set the paper towel at the bottom corner of the tub, tip it up, and pour the water through the paper towel, and make sure you hold that paper towel in place, and that should hold your material in while the water goes through it. You'll need to do it slowly so you don't break the paper towels. Answer the questions for part 3, and then answer the post-lab questions, and then make sure you submit your Google Doc when you are done. The student answer copy at the end of each of these part 1, 2, and 3 sections, there is an additional question besides what's listed here that says insert a picture of your drawing here. So those of you that are not here in person with me to show me your drawings in person, you can submit them right here directly in this Google Doc by inserting them where it says to. Once you are done with this, you've answered your post-lab questions, you will submit it all here on this assignment, and then you're done for the day, good to go. So again, if you are unable to find supplies to substitute and be able to perform this lab at home, go ahead and just watch the demonstration video here, and you can open up the student answer document and answer all of the questions and do the drawings based on the demonstration video. We'll see you next time.